Hello. All right then. Hello. Looks like we're live. Just me, which is okay. I wanted to talk about Dick Coughlan. I wanted to talk about the greater questions about how our community, our little YouTube community, handled the situation regarding this, um, and how maybe it could handle it a little bit better in the future. So, for those who don't know, recently, Dick Coughlan, who's a person on YouTube, he has been on for something like 10 years. He's been on quite a long time. Um, some stories started coming out about him being somewhat inappropriate, perhaps, on YouTube. Well, not on YouTube, I'm sorry. Being somewhat inappropriate with young women online in um, in messages, in little maybe pictures that he was showing, in DMs. And I don't think that it went well for anybody. Hello, everyone in the chat. um, it's good to see you on this lovely evening in May. I've been sort of giving myself a little liquid courage here because I'm not a confrontational person, and this feels very confrontational to me. But I'm gonna just, and this is not a joke. I had a pap smear today, so I figure if I got through that, that was uncomfortable. We can get through this too. Hi, everyone. So, in any case, Mr. Coughlan. And so some women and some trans women came forward to talk about some of the situation, um, of him maybe not being so appropriate and talking to young ladies online. So it it was complicated, I think. Um, one person sort of came out and just called him out on Twitter straight out, and he didn't react well. And after that, things kind of started to snowball, which, you know, uh, it's difficult for me because I don't know from the larger community. I had young ladies talking to me in the sort of whisper network kinds of things, or sending me messages and saying, you should know about this, you should know about that. Um, can I link? I wish I could link, but I'm sort of confused about the whole thing. I came in late, right? And that was one of the problems. Like, by the time I came in, this had already been sort of an ongoing problem. Now, his first reaction was sort of aggressive, I would say. He sort of went after the people who called him out. Um, and then, but just recently, he has had sort of an apology video. And so I think that the good thing is we can sort of dispense with, and I will link the apology video in, when I put everything together, I'll link his apology video. Um, so I think we could dispense with the idea that this was all lies. So he had an apology video. So well, I'm calling it the apology video. I don't remember off the top of my head what he called it. But where he sort of addressed it, but he also addressed the fact that a lot of the women who were talking, they didn't want to go on record. They didn't want to show screenshots. They didn't want their name attached to a lot of these things. So, and I can understand from his point of view how complicated that would make it. Like, well, who said what and what did I do? And why can't people just come forward? Right. So, but he put together a video where he said, yes, I can be very inappropriate, um, but I never intentionally meant to hurt anyone. I was never malicious. And so I'll throw that out right at the beginning. And he's probably right. He probably wasn't malicious. There were a lot of things about his video, though, that I think were very problematic that we can talk about, um, including he spent a lot of time talking about things like, I'm just the way I am. I am this person. I tell people that they can come to me if I'm being if they don't like it and just tell me to back off, but I am who I am and I can't change and whatever. Does anyone know who Dick Coughlan is? um, he's been a figure in the progressive world for a long time. And he's not like big, he's bigger than me, but he really has been, he's sort of a fighter, he's a brawler. I would say that that is part of the situation that is here, is this is just who he is, right? Um, So anyway, so that's kind of who he is. He's been after the alt-right. He's been after Alex Jones. He's been after these people for a very long time. He's also a comedian. So I mean, that's as best as I can describe him. So, but I do think that it was extremely problematic the way that he would come in and say, this is just who I am. I'm inappropriate. I don't understand social cues, right? But people can talk to me and tell me. First of all, that's not really true because he will go off on you, right? He will bang right at you if you criticize him sometimes. He's got a prickly temper. He is somebody who's been in this community for a long time. There's a serious amount of cachet that are that people give to him. I think because of his longevity, because of his willingness to fight battles, because of just the guy that he is. And but he will, like, I've seen him be very aggressive to people criticizing him. He certainly was aggressive to the people who originally brought this up, saying, look what happened to the last people, and it came across as threatening. He may not have meant it that way, but that's how it would appear. But even in any of these cases, it should never be beholden on the women that you're talking to police your behavior for you, right? So if you're talking to a young lady online who's 19, 20, 21, 22, whatever, and you're a 38-year-old man, it's very hard for me to say that it's reasonable to expect that you should be the one to be as much of a problem as you want, and they should be the one just going, "Hey, hey, dude. Hey." Like, at that point, you should know. You're a grown up. "Hey. Hey, Tim." Um, if you're a grown up, you should know. Like, you should be able to sort of look at things and say, "Look, if I was a 20-year-old young lady who, um, was navigating the online world, and would I want to get this picture? Would I want to get this message? How would that make me feel?" And if you really, really, really can't do that, and let's face it, he's a smart guy. Dick is not stupid, right? So he should be able to sort of say, "Look, maybe this is too far. Um, and maybe this isn't a good thing." Right? And if you really can't do that, if you're really just like so bad at social cues that this is just something you can't do, then maybe you shouldn't be talking to women in private messages. Like, maybe this isn't where you should go with that, right? Um, so there's that. And but saying all of that, he has apologized sort of generally. He's apologized specifically to at least one young lady, and she's accepted his apology. I know that there are other women, and they may consider that that is enough, that he's sort of learned something here, that they can move on, that everybody can move on. And, we can, things can go sort of back to whatever normal is, or um, whatever that situation would be like. Or, they may decide that they need to come forward for their own personal reasons. They need to tell their truth. They don't want to hide anymore. They don't want to go away and be in the shadows. And that is equally okay. And that should be equally okay with us. Those are perfectly um, perfectly acceptable. Both of those things are perfectly acceptable. And whatever happens is going to happen. He doesn't owe me anything. He hasn't done anything to me, so that's fine. So having moved on from sort of just dealing with that issue, what I really came to talk about was how we as a community handled this. And I don't think we handled it particularly well. And I guess I'm saying that based on how, as a community, right, the progressive community, the community of people who call themselves feminists, who call themselves progressives, social justice advocates, what have you, we are uniquely able, or should be uniquely able, to sort of show some leadership on this, and to have a conversation that is intelligent and sensitive and nuanced and compassionate about this, and show how these kinds of conversations should go. And that is not what happened. Absolutely not what happened. Um, And so I want to talk about ways that, whether it's more things coming forward about Dick, whether that never happens again, whether it's somebody else someday, how we could approach this more productively. And I feel kind of bad because I think you can all tell that I'm not used to talking off the cuff. There's a reason I go with um, scripts most of the time. So if I say a lot of ums, um, then I apologize. All right. So first and foremost, though, in terms of what we can do better, and we need to do better. This is ridiculous. This was not good. The first thing is that it needs to be absolutely crystal clear that when people come forward with this sort of things, I don't care what you think, right? But you should not be dogpiling. You should not be attacking. You should not be going after them. And if people are going after people who are coming forward with harassment complaints, you have to say, no, no, right? Like, that's not acceptable. Because we know that women feel a lot of anxiety in coming forward with these sort of things. We know that it is difficult for women, for trans people, for people of almost any marginalized community. You get this sort of message that this is the sort of thing that you're supposed to put up with in silence, and that's not good. So we have to sort of back off and give a person space to sort of come forward and say what they have to say, and not immediately go on attack, and not allow other people to immediately go on attack without, being there and being like, no, we this is, you know, this is how we keep our communities from being places where harm can happen to people who are vulnerable, right? And I think that we all want that. I think that we all want a place where people feel safe, that where they feel supported, where they feel like if they would come forward, if they had an issue, they could come and they could talk about it openly and not be attacked. And that is not what we have shown here. And, you know, yeah, I mean, we do want a safe space. Why wouldn't we want a space that is safe from sexual harassment? Why wouldn't we want a space? I'm sorry, I was talking to uh, people in the chat. So, um, but yeah, like, why wouldn't you want? You don't necessarily need a space that's safe from disagreement or ideas that you don't like, but you do want a safe space from people coming and making you feel really scared or uncomfortable or freaked out by sort of being sexually harassing or being just creepy. Um, and I think we need to get over this idea. And I've told this to people before, but I was a person who was a case manager, and that meant I dealt with abuse allegations. I dealt with people who came forward, and one of the funniest things that ever happened to me is I was working with people who had cognitive disabilities, and one of my jobs was to teach them about their human rights, right? Um, so I went and I was talking to this gentleman, and he had some significant cognitive disabilities as well as mental illness. He's what they call a dual diagnosis in the field, which take that as you will. And I was telling him, I was saying, you have the right to be free from abuse. You have the right to be safe and not have people hurt you. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, I do?" And I was like, "Yeah, you do. Why do you ask?" And that's when he told me about his roommate. So there are people Um, there are people in this world that will go after the vulnerable. Please don't take this to be about Dick. I'm not saying this is about Dick. Um, but I'm talking about how you create a community that supports people versus how you create a community that is not supportive of people, right? And you have to do these things intentionally. So, but in any case, one of the things that I always told people is that it's not your job when somebody comes to you talking about an abuse that they've suffered, right? It's not your job to find out if that's true. It's your job to keep everybody safe and healthy. We have police for that. And they have special training and they have resources that that's not available to you. So don't feel like you need to grab your little junior skeptic kid and say, "Well, I'm going to dust the keyboard for fingerprints and I'm going to crack this wide open," and that's ridiculous. Um, it's about having a sense of humility that maybe this is one of those plays where you don't get a speaking part, where you're there to be supportive. This was something I don't know if anybody knows who Matt Dillahunty is. He is a person who is in the atheist community, and he recently got into some hot water um, regarding a statement he had made about somebody who was sexually harassing other people, where he said, "Well, I believe, women who come forward with sexual harassment accusations. I even believe people who are come forward with ghosts and say they've seen spooky ghosts and stuff." It's not it's not how do I put this? Those are two completely different skill sets that are involved. Those are completely different situations. One is about somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I saw a ghost." And you're like, "Okay." And the other is a human being coming to you in the most difficult situation in their lives and needing help from you as another human being. And it's about you making sure that people are safe, making sure that people get the help that they need, making sure that um, if there is a problem, then other people are protected otherwise. All right. So there's a lot of questions in the chat, and I don't know everything either. Um, so I don't know how to explain everything. um, but what I want to talk about is that we as a community need to support people coming forward. understand that if we do want to know what really happened, we may need to give people the space to tell us and not jump all over them and not attack them, because otherwise they're not going to tell us, and they're going to go away. And then the next time, and the next time, and the next time, nobody's going to say anything. And that's how bad things happen. That's how abuse takes place in shadows and silence. And it just grows. I mean, if you look at things like Sandusky or the Catholic Church or any of these other places where abuse was just allowed to fester in darkness and silence, that's what happens. It's very difficult for people to come forward. They feel guilt, they feel shame, they feel pain. And if the first thing that they hear upon coming out and saying, well, this is a thing that happened, is a whole bunch of people coming after them at once, then that can actually, and there are studies on this, there are studies about people who, um, how you're treated when you come forward with things like this can impact how likely it is for you to have PTSD symptoms later, and how likely it is for those PTSD symptoms to last, right? And this is one of the reasons that people who have PTSD from rape are particularly hard done by. So I don't know. Is there anything from the chat? Any questions that um, I can answer about that? Let's see. I also don't think that we should, and I'm sorry to certain people in the chat. I don't think that we should dismiss this as mere drama. I think that that belittles what people go through and the pain that they feel and the fear that they feel. And I don't think that we want that. Um, mm. So far, there's nothing much in the chat um, as far as questions. All right. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of other streams going on as well, and anybody is free to go. I really just wanted to share my off the cuff feelings. I wanted to just be honest and um, and give something unscripted for once, which is not my usual. I usually do things in a very scripted fashion because I'm not the best, right? Um, but there you are. I would love to marry Fallout Forever and his girlfriend at the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. So you just send me a DM on Twitter. But thank you, everybody, and and have a lovely night. And thank you for being here and listening to what I had to say. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. I'm saying bye, but then I have to find the thing where. Oh, okay. Bye, for real this time.